Hi everyone, Kurt here, groansfromwithin.com. I wanted to share with you just a really cool little quick read. It was actually given to me by InterVarsity Press from their fan page on Facebook, so mad props to IVP for this. Thank you for the free book. It's John Stott's last book. It's called The Radical Disciple, and he's laying down his pen, as he says, kind of in the farewell address kind of thing. And he says, some neglected aspects of our calling. That's the subtitle. I'm going to read to you from a chapter on creation care, which surprisingly for many evangelicals is even in a book by such a prominent guy in the movement, John Stott. And I think when we have credible thinkers like Stott, who's more maybe in the conservative camp theologically addressing some of these issues, it starts to maybe ask us who maybe at times in our lives, I know in my own journey, have been skeptical about global warming and these kinds of issues, to really reevaluate and take the evidence seriously rather than being part of a polarized approach to politics and faith. So here's the quote that I want to read you that resonates so much with this blog. It says on page 50, "It stands to reason, therefore, that God's plan of restoration includes not only the reconciliation to God and to each other, but in some way the liberation of the groaning creation as well. We can certainly affirm that one day there will be a new heaven and a new earth, for this is an essential part of our hope for the perfect future that awaits us at the end of time, 2 Peter 3 and Revelation 21. But meanwhile, the whole creation is groaning, experiencing the birth pains of the new creation, Romans 8:18 and following. How much of the earth's ultimate destiny can be experienced now is a matter for debate. But we can surely say that just as our understanding of the final destiny of resurrection bodies should affect how we think and treat the bodies we have at present, so our knowledge of the new heaven and earth should affect and increase the respect with which we treat it now." I think that beautifully encapsulates why I personally am so passionate about ecological issues. I really wasn't until a few years ago when my eyes were open to this theology that the Bible just really seems to take seriously. And Stott doesn't just stop there. He goes on and says there's some areas we need to avoid in dealing with this issue. First and foremost, we don't deify nature. On page 52, he says, "We respect nature because God made it. We do not reverence nature as if it were God." And that's a big criticism I've gotten even on this blog, that we're giving too much value to nature. But no. We're giving value to God, who himself has delegated some of his value to what he creates, including humanity. Secondly, we must avoid the opposite extreme, which is the exploitation of nature, in which we see has really happened in our generation too much and often justified by bad readings of Scripture. Third, we need to be in correct relationship between human beings and nature, and seeing that as cooperation with God. We are joining God in the stewardship project. And so he lays that kind of as his foundation, and he says there's 4 areas in this ecological crisis that the church must not neglect. And I want to share those and then leave you to comment as you will. The first is we are seeing accelerated world population growth. Get this, in 1804, there were 1 billion people on the planet. Currently, there are about 6.8 billion, and by 2015, it's estimated that we'll have 9.5 billion people on planet Earth. Now, what do we do when resources are depleting and population is increasing? Well, if we continue on the path we're on, he alludes to that we're going to continue to have more and more poverty. And that's the next point. And second crisis is that the depletion of Earth's resources. And guess who depletes the most of it? Well, it's us in the United States. And this is something that should not be. Third, waste disposal. Waste disposal is a huge deal. He says the average person in the UK throws out his or her body weight in rubbish every 3 months. And for us in the United States, we know that often our garbage is shipped overseas to third world countries who need the money, and so they create landfills for us. And finally, fourth, is climate change. And this is kind of the big issue for a lot of evangelicals who are skeptical, who see scientists as having this liberal agenda and climate change as this huge myth. Well, let me tell you something. I've heard that there's over 40% of credible scientists are also followers of Jesus Christ. And so we need to stop the polarity and start thinking about solutions, I believe. And I want to leave you with a quote that he quotes to kind of end his chapter from Chris Wright, who we've talked about on this blog quite a bit. On page 59, it says, "It seems quite inexplicable to me that there are some Christians who claim to love and worship God, to be disciples of Jesus, and yet have no concern for the earth that bears his stamp of ownership. They do not care about the abuse of the earth, and indeed, by their wasteful and overconsumptive lives, they contribute to it." Well, that's from John Stott's final book, The Radical Disciple. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this short but brief, hopefully introduction, summary to his thoughts on this crisis. And look forward to reading your comments.